A video by Breyers Canine Academy.
Welcome to Breyers Canine Academy, where we tally up all the ways to turn your dream dog into reality. I'm Luke Schneider, and today I'm going to be walking you through how we teach dogs to understand pressure, starting with leash pressure and then transitioning into our e-collar, we also call the stem. These are not two different kinds of systems. They do follow the same steps and the same expectations, as well as the same reward structure. The only difference is how the information is delivered. Now, why does pressure come after shaping? Before any pressure is really introduced, the dog already understands the behavior from the shaping. We first teach behaviors through shaping and positive reinforcement. That's how we build confidence, motivation, and understanding in the puppy. Pressure is never used to teach a behavior. It's only used to clarify something that the dog already knows. Now, we always begin with leash pressure because it's a physical, clear, and easy thing for the dog to understand. There is one non-negotiable rule with leash pressure. Pressure turns off the moment the dog makes the correct choice. The dog is never dragged, forced, or held in position. The leash is information. It is never control. Now let's look at directional leash pressure alongside heel. When we pair leash pressure with heel, we intentionally teach the dog how to respond to pressure from every direction. This prevents pulling, confusion, and frustration later on for the dog. Backward pressure teaches the dog to slow down and return to position. Side pressure teaches alignment and spacing. And forward pressure teaches purposeful movement without hesitation. There's also another kind of pressure called rounded pressure in both directions. And this teaches the dog how to stay connected through various turns that you might take. The dog learns that leash pressure tells them how to fix a mistake that they might be making. Now with sitting down, we also apply the same system of pressure. For sit, leash pressure is applied upwards. The moment the dog sits, pressure turns off and the dog earns a reward. For down, leash pressure is applied downward. The instant the dog lies down, pressure turns off and the dog earns a reward. Clear direction removes confusion for the dog, and that is very, very important. Now, when we talk about raising expectations with the leash next, as a dog becomes fluent, the expectations do change. Now, let's look at the very first expectation for leash pressure. And the very first expectation with leash pressure is to avoid the pressure to earn a reward. If a correction is needed, the dog will not earn a reward, but they stay in the game and they get to try again. Now, if at any point the dog does make a mistake, leash pressure is applied immediately. The dog is then corrected back into the proper behavior, and pressure turns off as soon as the dog is doing the correct behavior. Then the dog is released with no reward if pressure is required. There are no second chances with the exercise. Now, a key note for you to understand is that when expectations rise, that means the dog is becoming mature, confident, and shows a history of being good at what we're asking them to do. Maturity is extremely important. Young dogs go through so many developmental phases, which means expectations are fluid, not permanent. Just because a dog can do something today does not mean they're ready to be held to that same standard forever. Now, when we're talking about pressure, confidence does come before pressure. A dog must be confident and genuinely good at the behavior before we raise expectations. If expectations are raised too fast, the dog can lose confidence, training can start to feel very difficult, motivation can drop, and it doesn't end up being very productive. If confidence drops, we slow down, lower expectations, and then rebuild from there to achieve success. Now, why does pressure come before the e-collar? Well, by the time we introduce the e-collar, the dog already understands how pressure works, how to avoid pressure, how to stay in the game, and how to avoid mistakes. These things are what make e-collar easy to introduce and humane to use as a tool for the puppy going forward. Look at introducing the e-collar now. And when we introduce the e-collar, also known as a stem collar, we start at a level that creates no discomfort nor any emotional response for the puppy. At this stage, the e-collar is simply information. That means introducing the e-collar correctly is important. Introducing the e-collar to a dog is its own action. When you introduce the e-collar, you need the puppy to be comfortable wearing the e-collar before you actually use the tool. Now let's move on to how we actually apply the e-collar in a real situation. The first behavior that we pair the e-collar with is recall. We apply a light stimulation, call the dog's name, the dog runs to our side, and earns a reward. Once the dog responds confidently, we remove the verbal cue. Now the sensation alone means to come back to me just like it would with recall. Next, we pair the e-collar with the command heel. We cue heel, briefly change position, and apply a light stimulation if needed. The moment the dog recovers, the stimulation is turned off, the dog earns a reward, and this mirrors leash pressure exactly. Now, when we talk about raising the expectations beyond that, these expectations now need to match the leash system. Now let's look at the first expectation for e-collars. The very first expectation with the e-collar is to avoid the stimulation to earn a reward. If the dog is corrected with a stimulation, they will not earn a reward, but they get to stay in the game and they get to try again. And as we raise these expectations, this turns into a game. The dog then knows to avoid e-collar reminders to stay in the game and earn the reward at the end of the exercise. Remember, the e-collar pressure is low so that it is only a light reminder to the dog about the correct behavior needed. And if stimulation is in fact needed, the dog is corrected immediately, the exercise ends, and the dog is released with no reward because the e-collar was needed. It allows us to turn the e-collar into a game for the puppy and to encourage the puppy into its correct behaviors. Now, let's look at why this prevents overuse. Overall, this system teaches dogs to avoid mistakes, stay engaged, and to fix problems quickly. Because of that, the pressure from the e-collar will stay low and is used less and less over time. Remember, the end goal is to remove the need of these tools over time. The e-collar is not intended to be a permanent tool. It is meant as a temporary teaching aid that helps establish a behavior and is intended to be removed as time goes on for the puppy. In closing, at the end of the day, the leash and the e-collar are not meant to be punishment tools. They're communication tools, and they're not meant to be used to punish a dog for bad behavior. That is not how these tools are intended. When taught in the order listed, learning stays clear, confidence stays high, and the pressure from the e-collar stays humane. And that's how we build reliable, motivated dogs that enjoy working. Hopefully, this helps with understanding how these tools will be used when you're using them yourself. As always, I'm Luke Schneider, and I'll see you on the next one.
This has been a Breyers Canine Academy training video. Thank you for watching.